A Work Conflict Guide / Catch a Liar. Chapter 1. Conflicts in Love, Life, and Business. Minimize conflict. Avoid foolish and senseless controversies, knowing that they breed quarrels. And the servant of the Lord must not be quarrelsome, but must be gentle to all men, an apt teacher, patient, gently instructing his opponents. 2 Timothy 2:23-25. Do unto others as you would want them to do to you. The Golden Rule. When a conflict arises, make the real problem you even if it isn't. Ask yourself if you're being a jerk. The best thing to usually do is to shut up. Be over it. It catches the other guy off guard. He doesn't know what to do. He wants to fight but you deprive him of it. I'm not a fan or non-fan of the Dalai Lama of Buddhist fame, but I was watching him being interviewed and he admitted that he is not always calm. He said when he gets angry, he leaves the situation in his mind. He tries to shut off the anger by clicking it off in his mind. Time away even in your mind works. Hold your tongue for that 1 minute to avoid saying something unforgivable. Don't send an email angry. You can write it then look at it an hour later and you'll probably delete it. There was a news story on TV about a bunch of people quitting work by posting some hateful, negative rant on the internet. I'll bet they all regret what they did. Never burn bridges. Keep your mouth shut. Quit gracefully or quit silently. Just don't say anything. When I was young and insecure, which I define as trying to find my way in the world, I argued with anyone who started a fight with me. Nowadays I don't. I have my true identity, I don't have to prove anything to anybody, I don't care what other people think of me, so I don't argue because I know the outcome will always be that he thinks he's right, I think I'm right, and we both think the other is an asshole. Why bother? If the boss tells you to do something and you think you have a better way, say it once, then after he rejects it, don't mention it again. If someone is a jerk, you don't have to argue. Just say you're a jerk because of this, and this, then shut up and don't say it again. If he keeps hollering while you say it, write it in a letter, put it in an envelope, then don't give it to him personally. He might tear it up. Just put it on his desk or in the mailbox so somebody else gives it him. When you're peaceful and remain so when confronted, you deprive people of the fight. They wanted to fight. They hate that, but you win by not fighting back. If they go physical on you, that's different. You have to fight back, but words and hollering are nothing that can hurt you. If you're the boss, you always win. If a subordinate argues with you, that's insubordination, 1 strike. 3 strikes and they're fired. If you're the subordinate, state your idea once. When the boss rejects it, it's over. If you are living a good life, you feel relaxed, you have nothing to prove to anyone, nor do you feel a need to fight or upstage anyone should a situation develop. To this end, before you ever get into hostile situations, do some of the following things in order to feel good about your life and be calm when things happen. Know yourself. Discover what your true identity is away from cultural conditioning. Try to live a relaxed lifestyle. Identify stress in your life and minimize it. Analyze all the negative thoughts and feelings you have. Try to understand them, then get rid of them. Be a positive, upbeat person. Don't live under any delusions. Be real. Be on good terms with the people around you. Try to culture allies and friends. Try to love life and a few people around you. Try to live a healthy lifestyle. Be inspired about something in life. Whenever you're in a hostile conflict, try the following steps. The key is to give a little bit and compromise. Try not to start off with a negative attitude. Don't go in half-cocked looking for a fight or to unload on someone. You can't beat around the bush. People can't read minds. You have to approach the other person and state directly that we have an issue we should try to resolve together. Try to be cooperative. Identify/define exactly what the problem is without criticizing a person. Try to resolve it being curious and friendly rather than oppositional. Just say we've got an issue we should try to solve. Don't bring the police or a lawyer into it unless personal, face-to-face measures fail. Slow down for a second. Keep your mouth shut while you analyze the situation. Identity exactly what emotions you're feeling. What is angering you? Try to listen to the other side and empathize. Put yourself in their position. When you speak, try to be non-confrontational. Make it such that you're just trying to solve the problem. Try to cooperate, to make it a win-win situation. Be assertive if you feel you must. Back off if the whole thing is not really a big deal to you. Try to build bridges rather than destroy them. Books about conflict management are at hashtag 303.69, hashtag 658.4 or HD42 and HM1126 at the library. Conflict info. Any fool can start arguments, the honorable thing is to stay out of them. Proverbs 20:3. Don't make friends with people who have hot, violent tempers. Proverbs 22:24. Most conflicts in relationships never get solved. In failing relationships, they merely add fuel to the fire. In successful marriages, they are, for lack of a better term, managed. Each side knows what to do to deal with them, usually to ignore the small things, the warts, and love their partner despite them. Don't try to fix the unfixable. Don't try to change your partner. Don't try to solve every conflict. Accept some as is and learn to live with them, like him with his smelly feet and her with her perpetual tardiness. If you really love him or her, you would accept it and move on rather than pouting on in a state of angry stalemate. My preference in love is a quiet, nice girl, someone like me, a quiet guy who doesn't like to argue about anything simply because I don't give a damn about too much anyway except to live a full life every day, and all trivial things are meaningless to me. So firstly, I'd pick the right girl up front, a quiet, spiritual one who wouldn't want to argue with me just like I wouldn't want to argue with her. And secondly, I rarely argue with anyone because my philosophy is that life is too short, live in a flow, don't let negative vibes from anywhere get in no matter what. If you have a beef, don't go charging in half-cocked. Bring it up smoothly, gently, gracefully, tactfully. Wait a while. Let it fume inside to see how trivial it really is in the grand scheme of things. From the opposite point of view, if your spouse comes onto you with a conflict like you don't pay attention to her, your immediate response is often defensive, saying yes I'm always here even if you're emotionally not. Instead of the usual defensive stance, stop and say, okay baby, maybe I'm not always here but I'm busy, I got problems, I gotta earn a living, and from there talk about it. The simplest rule about life is you get back the vibes you put out, positive begets positive, negative begets negative. When you put out a positive vibe in response to a conflict, you get a positive response back. De-escalate serious things with humor. Stay calm. In the middle of an argument, slow down, take a break, leave, get a drink, wash your face, walk around the block, anything to diffuse the tension. Learn to compromise and accept your partner with their warts or leave. If you have to fight, do it fairly in a rational manner. Be less critical and more considerate. Think about what you're gonna say before you say it. The way to diffuse conflicts is to all of a sudden get gentle instead of angry and either forget about it or talk it through quietly with calm and logic. Never criticize, blame, complain, control or get defensive. Use compliments instead and you will marvel at how much a little bit of love brings back to you. Saying hurtful things are usually a subconscious way to get back at your lover for past injury. The way to stop anyone cold is to detach from your ego, act like you don't give a damn about holding your own, getting the better of this person or letting them get the better of you. Simply smile to yourself, realize it's meaningless in the grand scheme of life and stop the fight right there. They will see that you're ignoring them and get the message quick enough that you're not really interested in the fight and you're going on with your happy life. Hold your tongue, be patient, let them ventilate, then, because you're so calm, they will see what idiots they're being. Virtually all fights come from the same thing: you're not loving me enough lately. The cardinal rule of all fights is not to go past the point of no return. If you don't, the love can always be restored. If you say the meanest, unforgivable thing you can, you will break something inside that will be lost forever, so hold your tongue, show restraint. The bottom line is that you don't have to fight, just live for peace like Jesus did. Isn't nothing but a stupid, little thing in the grand scheme of things? Can you be that free to just keep going with a smile on your face and let everything roll off your back? The best way to counter an angry spouse is to do something for her. The easiest thing is to buy a gift, the second easiest is to do some housework or humble yourself and offer her a foot massage. Some fights are tests of love. Think of them as that. The wisest person recognizes that his spouse needs love most when she's being an idiot. Think of a difficult partner as a porcupine that needs a big hug. Plant that image in your mind and live it whenever the going gets tough. It really works. When your partner gets crabby, that's the time for you to put on the super soft pads and bomb with love. It's all about ventilation, letting your partner get the hurt off his or her chest. Deal with issues directly and always try to be light and humorous about a serious scuffle. Never get sarcastic. Think before you open your mouth. Be civil in voice intensity, don't shout. Have the guts to apologize and or call a truce. There are many ways to call a truce, all of them about swallowing your ego and humbling yourself. The best way is to find a good CD at a music store that summarizes your feelings and give it to her. Ask the clerk or call a radio station and ask for a song that says, "I'm sorry for being a jerk, but if you do this too much, it will wear off," as I saw in the John Denver biography movie where he brought his wife a new song he wrote for her after their umpteenth fight and she said it wouldn't work anymore, whereupon she divorced him. The one thing I've found about life is that tone of voice is everything. If you talk gently, regardless of what you say, you diffuse almost every situation. Conflict, I believe, is a natural part of a love relationship because, despite the good that the love is doing for you, on the other hand, it is inevitably taking something away from your own personal identity and freedom. Whether subconsciously or on the surface, this little bit of tension is always there, at least among couples together less than 20 years, and should be acknowledged and addressed. Call it the power play, the tension you two have when jostling for position with each other. There will inevitably be some tension between you which you probably choose to repress. Look at conflict as a necessary release of tension or safety valve that if left unchecked will explode. Simply ask your lover at the end of the day how the day went, then kiss her and cuddle her. Try to get it all out, not just a surface fight over who left the stove on, but what's really going on underneath it all. Oftentimes, little arguments are convenient scapegoats for bigger problems underneath, such as a nag always nagging is probably unfulfilled as a human being and insecure in the relationship, so she tries to get control by nagging. Or if your girlfriend has a bad habit like smoking and she blows smoke in your face when she gets mad and you ignore her smoking until you get mad, then criticize her for it. Tension should be dealt with to clear the air. If left unchecked, it could blow up into bad fights. Don't get defensive and dump all your baggage out on your partner. Listen, then try to get to the root of the problem. If left to simmer, it causes headaches, anxiety, and disrupts everything else in your life. You may turn to addiction, any form from shopping to drugs, to numb the emptiness it leaves inside you. It may get so bad, you might try professional help, but I believe that people should solve their own problems except in extreme cases. Get it out, solve it immediately through talk and understanding. Invariably, the root cause to virtually every fight is resistance breeds resistance. The egocentric part in each of us tells us not to let anyone get the better of us. And somehow this translates to the ones we love, maybe because we're stuck so close in living proximity that we get on each other's nerves from time to time. Say, for example, you make a mess, your wife nags you about it, but you had a bad day, so you say to yourself, screw her, and leave it. She nags you again. You get up, wash the dishes, purposely leaving them dirty to spite her. She sees this and gets mad, washing her own clothes in the laundry and leaving yours in a pile to smolder. You see that as a deliberate act, so you retaliate by letting the dog into the bedroom all over the bed, which she absolutely despises. Then you ignore each other and pretend to sleep while seething on each side of the bed. Make it a point to stop yourself before your counterattack to her attack. When a conflict starts, automatically be extra nice to her right then, talk about it in a cool, rational manner and resolve it with some kind of mutual agreement. It's called the art of the deal. Don't get into over-explaining and over-analysis too much. Be mature, cut it off, stop the cycle, make the first step towards reconciliation. Ultimately, we're all individuals stuck in our own point of views made up of everything that ever happened to us, which formed our attitudes and perceptions about the world. We're all a tangled web of emotions. A relationship is a coming together of two tangled webs of emotions. Some parts fit, some don't. The parts that fit may lead to a snug connection, the parts that don't could short-circuit and self-destruct. My point in all this is that we are all individual entities floating around like blobs of flesh, each encumbered in his own space, and the reality is that no two blobs are exactly alike. It's just one of the facts of life. No matter how close one gets to another, there's always the rift of individual differences. These can be dangerous, serious enough to destroy relationships. As a relationship evolves, the similarities fade and the differences may be highlighted. This could lead to feelings of alienation when one realizes that the other is really not like him or her. The best we can do is acknowledge in our minds that we are different, we come from different places, so we must accept such things in our mates without going off half-cocked feeling like strangers when we learn she didn't partake in the middle-class ritual of summer camps like you did, or some other ridiculous thing like that, such as you like baseball, she thinks it's stupid. Every single day is a new day. Just as it's a battle to keep your spark of inspiration alive, it's a battle to keep love hot all the time. I just be myself and try to be nice all the time. It's the easiest way to live. When you're nice, karma comes back to you. No gimmicks, no big presents to buy her love, try to be nice to her, getting her things from the kitchen when she's sitting down, and every night, sit beside her, talk to her and kiss her because you love her. Conflict at work. Within any group of people anywhere, including the workplace, some people will naturally dislike some of the others, some will be naturally attracted to others and form cliques, while others will be loners who keep mostly to themselves, or equal opportunity friends who try to be friends with everybody but have no allegiances to anybody. I'm partial to the last type. I try to be friends with everybody because I will never know when I need somebody's help. I don't like to join small in groups because that stigmatizes you and usually alienates you from other groups. You always need little favors at work, so the more people you're allied with, the better off you will be. Make a conscious effort to culture all the allies you can wherever you are. Conflicts will happen simply because people are different and often don't particularly like people who are not like them. The best thing a company can do is to promote a live and let live policy, i.e. tolerance. Negative people like to blame, instigate fights, and hold grudges. In general, regardless of the source of the conflict, try to resolve it quickly before it gets out of hand. Be a good listener. Get both sides of the issue. There is usually one asshole who starts something. Don't pull any punches. If one guy was being an asshole, give it to him, punish him, fire him if you have to. Don't play the liberal role of trying to smooth things over for everyone, because this doesn't solve anything. Granted, some situations have no clear villain, but most usually have one clear jerk and the victim. Promoting cooperation or separating the two might work in some situations, but if you have a person who's a jerk by personality, why bother trying to work with him? Tell him he's a disruptive force and show him the door. With minor conflicts involving good people, focus on the problem, not the person. Try to minimize conflicts by creating a relaxed workplace without much stress in the first place. Barring that, always search for the objective truth in any situation. Clarify exactly what the issue is. Try to stay out of some conflicts. Encourage employees to solve their little problems amongst each other themselves, but if the problem is severe, encourage them to come to you, the boss, for help, since that's your job anyway, to help keep production running smoothly. When trying to mediate a situation, try to be objective. Treat everyone with respect and professionalism, but look for the objective truth. Every situation is different. Be intuitive in how you deal with it. In some cases, it's best just to back off, let the players cool off, then go on without resolving anything. In time, everybody will conveniently forget about it. Clear channels of communication is essential for a happy workplace. Encourage frustrated, unhappy workers to tell you what's going on. Try to relate and empathize with them. Stay calm and try to keep them calm. Do not fight anger with anger. Tell him to cool off for 5 minutes, then try again. Try to be relaxed and not confronting, because confrontation is usually met with resistance. Simply say you're not taking sides, you just want to get to the truth, and keep repeating it. Avoid the little in groups that keep to themselves, separate themselves from the mainstream group and gossip about them. Make your identity at work be that of the sociable one, friendly with everyone but with a part of you that no one can penetrate because you're too strong for all of them with their trivial gossip, office politics crap. Play it as kind of the person on the outside looking in, checking it out, but with your own identity away from work. In the workplace you have different jobs, the secretaries, the managers, sales, accounting, production, transport, etc. Within these groups, there may be squabbles among cliques like the blue-collar drinking types versus the corny conservatives, and every individual thinking about where he is in the pecking order, especially if you're ranked in your purse. Beyond this inner group jostling for position and squabbling, every group is generally united against the other groups, meaning your loyalty is to your own group first over anyone else, and sometimes your group might even fight or openly hate other groups. The biggest strength at work, or conversely, the biggest problem, is people. It's always about people, the way they relate to each other. There are no easy answers. People are naturally tribal, they stick to their own kind and shut out the rest in a kind of us against them attitude. This is human nature. You have to deal with it. Your best bet is to acknowledge these tribes exist and identify them in your workplace. The trick is not to eliminate them because you can't, but to actively encourage everybody to get along with each other, and at the very least, to tolerate each other. Either put up posters or make occasional speeches about brotherly love, multiculturalism, and things like that, especially after there's some kind of squabble. Try to encourage teamwork and common respect for your fellow man. Tell them they don't have to love each other, just work together as a team while they're at work. If one tribe goes off too far on their own, alienating themselves from the rest of the organization, that may be alright provided they get the job done, but if you need them as part of the main group, you either have to fire the leaders or reassign them to other different tribes in the organization and put a few equal opportunity friends in with them to break them up. Don't force phony social relations, just encourage common respect and teamwork. The head guy of a big worldwide delivery company said he changes everybody every year or so. He either puts them in a different job, with a different group, or on a different shift. In essence, some basic guidelines on how to promote a healthy workplace are: encourage a teamwork atmosphere. Stimulate people to be interested in their work but not overworked. A good way to get different groups to get along is to just put some of them together to work on a project, or encourage them to brainstorm about making their two departments work better together or something like that. Try to get people from different groups to work together physically in the same area if at all possible. Don't just segment them off into separate units so they barely see each other. As with people anywhere, the more they get close to each other to talk and get to know each other, the more civil, friendly, and helpful they will be to each other. Give each person physical space. Don't stand too close to someone ventilating his frustrations. Don't give off a challenging stance. Don't point your finger or cross your arms. Don't glare or stare. Ask the person how he thinks the conflict should be resolved. If an individual is putting everybody and everything down, ask for specifics. Be reassuring. Your job is to calm people down in the moment. Do not make promises you cannot keep. Books about conflict management are at hashtag 303.69, hashtag 658.4 or HD 42 and HM 1126 at the library. Conflict resolution websites. Spouses and families fight and people in business fight. Here are some websites to help you resolve conflicts. acrnet.org, acresolution.org, the Association for Conflict Resolution. crinfo.org, Conflict Resolution Gateway. accri.org, Correspondence Course on Conflict Resolution. acresolution.org, Association for Conflict Resolution. campus-adr.org, Campus Conflict Resolution Resources. ccrcmediation.com, Chesapeake Conflict Resolution Center. CICR-ICRC.ca, Canadian Institute for Conflict Resolution. conflict.colorado.edu. conflictresearch.org. conflict-resolution.org, Center for Conflict Resolution at Salisbury University. conflictresolution.org. conflictresolutionblog.com. conflictresolutionusa.com. mediate.com. nccri.org, National Center for Conflict Resolution Education. work911.com/conflict. Association for Conflict Resolution. 1015 18th Street Northwest Suite 1150. Washington, D.C. 20036. 202-464-9700. acrnet.org. Chapter 2. Alternative Dispute Resolution and Mediation. Conflict Resolution at Home and in Business. Spouses and families fight and people in business fight. Here are some websites to help you resolve conflicts. The key is to give a little bit and compromise. Try not to start off with a negative attitude. Don't go in half-cocked looking for a fight or to unload on someone. You can't beat around the bush. People can't read minds. You have to approach the other person and state directly that we have an issue we should try to resolve together. Try to be cooperative. Identify/define exactly what the problem is without criticizing a person. Try to resolve it being curious and friendly rather than oppositional. Just say we've got an issue we should try to solve. Don't bring the police or a lawyer into it unless personal, face-to-face measures fail. acrnet.org, acresolution.org, the Association for Conflict Resolution. acresolution.org, Association for Conflict Resolution. Mediation and arbitration at work. If you're in an employee-employer employment dispute for breach of contract, unjust termination, or any other matter, rather than go through the courts, you can go through mediation or arbitration. In mediation, the mediator is a neutral third party. In collaborative law, it's just the two sides talking it out with no third party present. Mediation and collaborative law are generally agreed to by both sides together. In arbitration, the arbitrator makes the final decision just like a judge does. The mediator could be a lawyer or a professional in the social work/counseling field. It is much cheaper than using lawyers, and lawyers don't particularly like it. Mediation at work websites. mediationworks.com. adrforum.com, National Arbitration Forum. transformativemediation.org. acjnet.org, Access to Justice and Work. afccnet.org, Association of Family and Conciliatory Courts. mediation.com. mediatorindex.com. nicar.ca, Network, Interaction for Conflict Resolution Canada. nocourt.org/principles.htm, Collaborative Law. American Arbitration Association. 800-778-7879. Fax, 877-INFO AAA. adr.org. National headquarters of this nonprofit organization with 37 regional offices. Divorce mediators available. Association for Conflict Resolution. 1015 18th Street NW. Number 1150 Washington, D.C. 20036. 202-464-9700. acrnet.org. Association of Conflict Resolution. 1527 New Hampshire Avenue, NW. Washington, D.C. 20036. 202-667-9700. Mediate.com. Alternative Dispute Resolution /ADR. Instead of going to court on a civil matter like a divorce, a business disagreement, a consumer problem, a landlord-tenant issues, etc., you might be able to resolve a civil problem or dispute by simply talking to the complainant, or you may both agree to a formal proceeding commonly called an alternative dispute resolution /ADR. These kinds of legal processes can be used in almost all kinds of civil cases, including employment, business dispute, family, divorce, neighbors, landlord-tenant, consumer, personal injury, home improvement services and contracts. There are several different types of ADRs. The spirit of all of them is that the two sides sit together with a neutral third party who will either act as the referee or the judge, depending on the type of ADR the players choose. In order for there to be an ADR as opposed to a court case, both sides have to be open and friendly enough to agree to this arrangement and agree to abide by the results. They are still adversarial but willing to give a little bit more than in a court case. Depending on the laws in your area geographically and in the subject area of your dispute, there could be provisions in the law that allow you to choose ADR instead of a regular court case, or you could operate independently of the court system if you want. Before you file a lawsuit, ask the other side if they would be willing to go through an ADR process rather than go to court over it. The biggest advantages of ADR over litigation are: speed of resolution, cheaper costs, no lawyers getting high fees for an extended period of time. With ADR, if it breaks down or you don't like the way it's going, you can always revert back to the court trial process if you want. The general procedure is as follows. Both sides agree to an ADR process. The two sides write an agreement where they agree on the time, the duration of the process, and who, if anyone, will make the final decision. Sometimes, but not all, each side will write up their version of events to give to the arbitrator/mediator. There will have to be an agreement to how the arbitrator will be paid and possibly a constraint on time. Both sides could agree that the process will go on regardless of time constraints, or agree to X number of hours for the process, then that will be it. Either they or the arbitrator will have to make a decision after that. On the day of the meeting, each side will come in. The moderator will explain the case briefly by defining the exact issue at hand and give each side a chance to make their presentation. After this, they will discuss, argue, and negotiate until either they reach a mutual decision, or if they can't, the moderator will say he has heard enough and goes off to deliberate about his decision. This could take several days. The moderator's skill is in being neutral while being civil and friendly to both sides. His job is to help each see the other side, to prevent them from fighting and keeping a level head so that both sides stay to work through it. He can inject his ideas about how the two parties should resolve the issue at hand. The moderator has the option to talk to each side in private if he wants, in order to help him resolve the issue at hand. If one of the sides doesn't like the way the proceeding is going, they can cut it off before the final decision and revert back to the court litigation process. In big cases, several people sit on a board of arbitrators or mediators and hear a case as a team. Think of the moderator as a judge, referee, teacher, and ideas person. Think of ADR as good faith bargaining. Negotiation. The simplest type of ADR is a negotiation process. Both sides try to work it out. They try to hammer out a deal together by talking it out, while a third party tries to help them with general advice. You have to give a little bit and compromise. Each side states its terms, then you discuss them anywhere from a few minutes to several days and end up with an agreement. Mediation. Mediation is a good faith process with both sides presumably entering into it to come to a fair settlement. If one side is in stronger or bullying position, mediation is no good. If one side wants punitive damages, the issue has to be resolved in a court of law. The mediator must be someone who does not have an emotional or financial stake in the outcome. Mediators should be professionals who don't know the players involved. The mediator's job is to sit with the players and try to keep them calm and cordial while you all work on solving the problem you're working on. A mediator schedules a meeting at a time and place convenient to everyone. He wants them all to feel they can speak openly and makes it clear that his job is to get to the bottom of the problem. The mediator gives the players turns explaining their position, issues, or feelings. Make a rule that they are not to be interrupted while speaking. Have someone take notes. Encourage questions by the other side after one side has spoken. Periodically, with a complicated point, have the note-taker read back what someone said such that the person can either confirm or clarify it. Invite everyone to offer their own solutions. Discuss these possible solutions. Try to come to a solution that everyone can accept. It will usually be a compromise, each side giving a little bit. The ideal is to let the people experiencing the conflict decide on a solution among themselves without input from the mediator. If they can't, then the mediator has to make that decision for them. Tell them that you would rather that they come to an agreement amongst themselves rather than you making it for them. Once you reach a solution, tell them you'll put it into practice for a week or two, then call another meeting to discuss it and make adjustments if necessary. The mediator is more a moderator than a judge. He's controlling the flow of discussion between the two parties. His job is to keep them talking until they come to a decision together. If the talks break down, they can choose to go back to court to settle the problem. The proceedings are informal, and although you can bring a lawyer, it doesn't seem appropriate because of the good faith nature of the process. Arbitration. Arbitration is a process wherein if you have a beef against anyone regardless of whether it's business, a landlord-tenant dispute or any civil matter, you can take it to arbitration rather than to a court where an arbiter, who is less stringent than a judge, will hear your case and the decision he or she makes will be legally binding. The advantages of arbitration are generally less formality than a court trial, less expensive and less time-consuming. The difference between arbitration and mediation is that in arbitration, the arbiter generally makes the final judgment, whereas in mediation, the mediator tries to get the parties involved to reach some kind of agreement amongst themselves. The tendency of alternative dispute resolutions is that the arbitrator will typically try to satisfy both parties and split the case down the middle rather than a court case, which usually ends up with a winner and a loser. Both sides agree that the arbitrator, a neutral third party, will make the final decision that will be legally binding. This process is more formal than mediation, and both sides can bring evidence and witnesses in and also use lawyers in the process. This sounds a lot like regular trial, but it differs in that the arbitrator is much more flexible about not having to follow the procedure of law and can use evidence not normally accepted in a court of law, like hearsay. After the hearing, the arbitrator deliberates and delivers a written decision within 30 days, and that's it. There's no magic verdict moment, it's a piece of paper. The decision of a binding arbitration is final and you can't appeal it. Also, you can't use a jury as in a regular trial. Summary. Both mediation and arbitration are private, unlike public courtroom trials. There are alternative dispute resolution centers all across the country. Check the yellow pages of the phone book under the following categories: alternative dispute resolution, arbitration, mediation service. Also, refer to your local Better Business Bureau, which does a lot of arbitration and mediation work in consumer affairs between customers and business owners. They also help a lot of unhappy car owners get satisfaction from the dealers. In the final analysis, if you think it's a viable option in your case, consider mediation/arbitration in lieu of a court trial. There are books about ADR at #347.710-740 and K8615 or KF9084 at the library. ADR websites. Contact one of the following organizations or the trade organization in the area you're disputing. ADR.org, American Arbitration Association. CEDAR.co.uk, Center for Dispute Resolution. ConflictResolution.org. CPRADR.org, CPR Institute for Dispute Resolution. Mediate.com. MediaTion.org, Academy of Family Mediators. MediaTions.com. No-faultadr.org, New York. American Bar Association. Standing Committee on Dispute Resolution. 740 15th Street Northwest. Washington, D.C. 20009. 202-662-1680. Abanit.org/public. Will help you find a resolution program to deal with a consumer problem. Better Business Bureau. 4200 Wilson Boulevard. Number 800. Arlington, Virginia 22203. 703-276-0100. 800-334-2406. bbb.org. Dispute Mediation Organization. 800-35205-267. 800-400-3773. jams-nddispute.com. National Arbitration Forum. 800-474-2371. arb-forum.org. National Institute for Dispute Resolution. 1901 L. St. N.W. Number 600. Washington, D.C. 20036. 202-862-0100. 202-466-4764. crenet.org. Public Investors Arbitration Bar Association. Norman, OK. 888-621-7484. 404-365-0150. paba.org. Will recommend a lawyer for arbitration. Mediation organizations in Canada. afcnet.org, Association of Family and Conciliatory Courts. amici.org, Arbitration and Mediation Institute Canada. attorneygeneral.ju.gov.on.ca/html/family/familymediation.htm, Ontario Mandatory Mediation Program. ccmmediation.com, Canadian Centre on Mediation. mediation-services.ca. Arbitration and Mediation Institute of Canada. 232, 329 March Road. Box 11. Canada, on K2 times 10 to the power of first. 877-475-4353. 613-599-0878. Fax, 613-599-7027. amici@igs.net. amici.org. Canadian Bar Association. Task Force on ADR. 902-50 O'Connor St. Ottawa, on K1P6L2. 800-267-8860. 613-237-2925. 613-237-1988. Fax, 613-237-0185. info@cba.org. cba.org. Contact them for a referral to a mediation program in your area. Center for Mediation. 2300 Yonge Street. Number 709. Toronto, on M4P1 times 10 to the power of 4th. 416-544-0633. Fax, 416-544-0631. Family Mediation Canada. 123 Wallack Street. 2nd FL. Guelph, on N1H3B1. 519-836-7750. Fax, 519-836-7204. FMC at web.net. fmc.ca. Chapter 3. A Liar Catch a Liar Guide. Lie detector / polygraph. Polygraph / lie detector tests were outlawed for use in integrity testing in 1987. They're just too unreliable. Testing on their reliability has proven inconclusive at best. The Federal Employee Polygraph Protection Act forbids the use of polygraph / lie detector tests for pre-employment screening. Employers can request that you take a polygraph if you're suspected of a crime or in the interests of security only. Polygraph testing law in the workplace differs for every state, totally illegal in some. The Federal Employee Polygraph Protection Act is riddled with loopholes which in fact make polygraph examinations legal in many circumstances. The law does not regulate the administering of polygraph examinations between any parties outside the employer. Employee relationship. In an employee-employer relationship, employees can voluntarily agree to take a test at any time. However, he or she can refuse to take the test or stop the test at any time, and the employer can take no legal recourse against the employee for the refusal. But we all know this is garbage, because by asking an employee to take a test voluntarily, you're putting him or her on the spot, implying that if they don't take it, they must be hiding guilt. Also, an employer prevented by law to take legal recourse can still make life miserable for the employee in other indirect ways. A polygraph can be administered to an employee if all of the following conditions are met. The test is administered as part of an ongoing theft, embezzlement, or other investigation at the company where there is economic loss. The employee had access to the property that is the subject of the investigation. The employer has reasonable suspicion that the employee was involved in the activity under suspicion. The employer provides a written statement before the examination which sets forth with particularity the specific incident or activity being investigated and the basis for testing particular employees. Is signed by a person, other than a polygraph examiner, authorized to legally bind the employer. Is retained by the employer for at least 3 years, and contains at a minimum 1. An identification of the specific economic loss or injury to the business of the employer. 2. A statement indicating that the employee had access to the property that is the subject of the investigation, and 3. A statement describing the basis of the employer's reasonable suspicion that the employee was involved in the incident or activity under investigation. The employee must be provided with a written notice of the date, time, and location of the test, and of such examinee's right to obtain and consult with legal counsel or an employee representative before the test. This notification must also describe the nature of a polygraph test. The employee must be provided the opportunity to review the test questions before the test and be informed of the right to terminate the test at any time. After the test, the employer must further interview the employee on the basis of the test results, provide the employee with a copy of any opinion or conclusion rendered as a result of the test and a copy of the questions asked during the test along with the corresponding charted responses. Several industries are exempt from the Employee Polygraph Protection Act and can require mandatory examinations. These are generally companies in the law enforcement, national defense, security, alarm, prescription drug manufacturing and distribution companies, and money delivery services. A company which violates these rules is subject to civil liability up to $10,000 per violation plus lost wages, reinstatement, and legal fees incurred by the employee. Remember, the polygraph is just a measure of bodily functions. It's not a real direct lie detector, so employers cannot take adverse action against an employee based solely on the results of a polygraph examination. The polygraph examiner must be licensed in the state where the examination occurs. If that state licenses polygraph examiners, cannot conduct more than 5 examinations a day, and each examination must last no more than 90 minutes. The results of a polygraph examination arising from an employer-employee relationship are to be held confidential between the examiner, employer, employee, and any court, arbitrator, mediator, or concerned government agency. All employers are required by law to post a notice in the workplace summarizing employee rights under this act. Try your local phone book Yellow Pages for lie detector or polygraph, watch TV talk shows which sometimes give websites for lie detector companies and contact them. The Employee Polygraph Protection Act of 1988 is located at 29 U.S.C. 2001. Antipolygraph.com. Antipolygraph.org. psychologymatters.org/polygraphs.html. Polygraph.org. blackhillspolygraph.com. brainwavescience.com, new technique. floridapolygraph.org/members. indianapolygraphassociation.com. polygraph.com. polygraphexpert.com, 323-932-0200. politest.org. read.com, 800-255-5747, company which claims to detect deception and guilt through body language. American Polygraph Association. 5700 Building, number 800. epub 8037. Chattanooga, Tennessee, 37414-0037. 800-272-8037. 423-892-3992. Fax, 423-894-5435. Polygraph.org. Polygraph.org/states. Nationalpolygraph.com. 877 NPA Poly. Lie detector/functional magnetic resonance imaging/fMRI. There is now technology where they take pictures of your brain to see if the part of the brain that deals with deception lights up. fMRI.org. Beat the lie detector. In order to beat a lie detector test, note that it is nothing more than an EKG, a medical machine that monitors physiological bodily functions. The easiest way to beat it is to really believe the lies you're telling as though you were a psychopath. Be a compulsive liar throughout the test. The harmless questions the guy asks that he expects you to tell the truth unlike your name, address, etc. are his baseline on which he determines your metabolism, so to speak, and sharp deviations from these are considered lies. So what you do is to think of an embarrassing situation or tell yourself you're lying to him, all the while doing things to stress your body like bite your tongue, pinch yourself with your free arm not hooked up to the polygraph, or simply tense your body while you answer the question, all meant to screw your results up. After he asks you these simple, harmless questions, try your hardest to be calm when he asks you other questions, particularly the ones where you will be lying. So the general rule of thumb is to tense up when you're answering a harmless question or any question truthfully, and relax when lying. Take a tranquilizer before you take the test. Think of anything else but the questions. Think of a hot sex scene throughout the test, or do multiplication tables in your head. If they ask you if you did something dishonest, think in your mind that it wasn't dishonest, it was entirely justified and you're right. One guy says put a tack under your big toe in your shoe and press down on it to receive a jolt of pain every time you answer a simple baseline question. The more self-imposed stress you bring on yourself during the baseline part, the better for you. Antipolygraph.com. Detect a liar. A liar looks in a downward position to the left. The golden rule to detect a liar is to accept the fact upfront that everybody has the potential to lie, and many people often do to make a situation go easier, the white lie, or simply to build up their egos, the old big fish story. The biggest giveaway is the person who pauses before he speaks, either making up the story as he goes along or checking his memory to see if he's violated other parts of his so-called story. What I mean is that quite often when you lie, you have to create a bunch of other lies to keep the story straight, and then when you meet the person later, he'll have in his mind your lies from the past which he may accept as truth, and you may have forgotten all about them, or you may vigilantly have to cover for them. Watch out for charmers, most are liars. Don't assume that because someone doesn't look you in the eye, they're lying. Many smooth cons will look you straight in the eye while they're lying their eyes out. Conversely, many people that are nervous with first encounters are not necessarily liars. There is no universal sign of a liar, but it's a good bet if they lie with the small, trivial stuff, they'll lie with the big, important stuff. Research on deception has shown that many people try to fake facial expressions, but most true, real expressions are very short. Hence, if someone puts on a facial expression that lasts longer than 5 seconds, it's probably fake. True facial expressions are those that last less than 1 second. Watch out for a facial expression that doesn't jive with the verbal statement. Along with the pause, watch out for a lot of ahs or us, higher tone of voice and body language. Liars often try to go to a monotone and show no body language, but watch for something like a clenched fist or a shrug, which is often a good indicator that the person is lying. Amateur liars often change both body language and voice tone when lying. If you want to catch a liar, ask a quick 2 or 3 follow-up questions and see how quick he gets flustered, then you'll both know he's lying. If all else fails, tell him he's lying and ask for the truth. If you alienate yourself from him, you lose. Signs-of-lying.com. The truth about lying.com. Truth about deception.com.